first story that I've got for you this evening was originally posted by a Reddit user called Meanwhile-in-Paris. Their story is called Open the Door Please, Come Out. This story happened a few years ago. I was in my early 20s and I was studying in Paris, France. I was going home from uni. I usually took a short bus ride and walked the rest of the way. Now, that day, I felt slightly uncomfortable. I could sense someone looking intensely at me. I was used to unpleasant, unsolicited gazes, but this time, his gaze felt beastly. Now, it's hard to explain why, but I felt like prey being stalked. So, I decided to get off of the bus a few stops early. I wanted to avoid this guy and I didn't want him to see where I usually get off. Like I learned in the movies, I waited until someone else pressed the stop button and I waited until the last moment to stand up and leave. I didn't notice him getting off of the bus. Now, just as I was feeling the relief of having escaped an uncomfortable situation, I looked over my shoulder, and there he was, a few meters behind me. I had the distressing feeling that his eyes had just looked away the moment I turned. I walked into a shop, took my phone, and pretended to be taking a call. When I couldn't see him anymore, I exited the store and made my way home as fast as I possibly could. I kept looking back into the busy street. I zigzagged, crossed the street at every crossing, and then finally, after a while of not seeing him, I believed that him getting off at the same stop was just a coincidence. When I reached my building, I looked back one last time, and there he was, his alarming gaze on me, smirking. I ran up to my apartment, climbing the stairs 4 at a time. I reached the top floor, squeezed through my door, locked it, and froze. My intercom was ringing. Don't ask me why I picked it up. I regretted it the moment I did. I could hear the intercom of the flat opposite to me ringing as well. He had pressed all the buttons one by one, hoping someone would open. But now, he knew my name. Gabrielle. Oh shit. I feel like a deer in headlights, frozen. Open the door, please, said a pleading voice. I just want to talk to you. Now somehow I couldn't move or speak. Come to the window, he added. Look at me. You'll see I'm not a bad guy. Something inside my mind clicked. He wanted to locate my apartment within the building. I was not going to make that mistake. I hung up, completely in shock. I waited by the door without moving for what seemed like hours. When I finally managed to calm myself down, I called my long-distance boyfriend. Call the police, he said immediately. Why didn't I call the police? instead. I didn't want to feel alone. I told her all about it, and after a while I felt better, I felt safe. We started laughing about what happened. Suddenly, the intercom rang again. 2 hours had passed since I'd come home. I answered. "Gabrielle," said the voice, "open, please." Now I still remember the chills that I felt. He was still there. He had been there all this time. I was silent, petrified. "Gabrielle, let me in. I am so thirsty," he said. "Just give me a glass of water." This broke the tension. I was able to move again and I hung up. Curled up in a corner, literally in recovery position, terrified, I waited. I was scared to even make a sound. I knew he couldn't hear me from the hallway, but I was so scared to even breathe. The intercom rang once again. And again. I didn't answer this time. I crawled onto the sofa and fell asleep out of pure exhaustion. I heard the intercom ring once more in the middle of the night. I woke up in the morning and I was afraid to leave my apartment. I called my dad, who came to pick me up. There was no one in the hallway, but there was a note in my mailbox. "Gabrielle, I'm a nice guy. You should have opened for me." We immediately went to the nearest police station. The police listened and of course told me that I should not hesitate to call them should it ever happen again. My dad called a locksmith to install a digicode on the building door the same day, and he wrote a message to each of my neighbours asking not to open the door to anyone they didn't expect. He sat in the cafe in front of my building with 2 friends every evening for over a week. I never saw the stalker again. After this episode, I used a different route to and from uni every day. I kept my phone tightly in my hand and looked back every few meters. Today, I'm still very observing of my surroundings. I never answer the door if I'm not expecting anyone. So people, if you ever find yourself in any kind of uncomfortable situation, call the police. Don't be an idiot like me. Be safe, everyone. Firstly, I want to say that I do not think at all that this Redditor is an idiot. I think lots of things in this situation she handled well, actually. I think it was smart of her to get off of the bus before her own stop. I think it was smart of her to wait until the very last moment to get off of that bus. Even though he still managed to follow her out, that was still a smart thing to do. I also think it was smart to go into a shop and wait till he was gone. I think it was smart that she crossed the street multiple times and tried to shake him off, even though it didn't work. That was good thinking. Now the only thing that she should have done, and that she does realise now, is that she should have phoned the police when he was basically harassing her at her door. I'm really glad that this guy didn't manage to get in. It's already creepy enough, just the sheer fact that he followed her to her house. That is wild already, but then the fact that he waited there for several hours is disturbing, to say the least. This story reminded me of when, you guys probably remember, when that guy who I saw at the station where I work, he was staring at me creepily, and I made a face that just to show him that I was displeased with it, and then went about my merry way and took a train home, and he actually had followed me onto this train, even though it was a train that he didn't need to take. And I only realised that he had followed me when I was already in my own driveway. So he had followed me all the way to my driveway before he said something. And then he came with some lame excuse that he wanted directions somewhere, even though, later on he admitted that he had seen me at the station where I work and he was just too shy to come talk to me, so he decided to follow me instead. Sick. That is sick. I was also very lucky in this situation. I should have also phoned the police because I was literally followed. But I didn't. I just threatened him instead. Said that I had a big bulky boyfriend inside my house, which wasn't true. And he did get scared off, and he took the train back to where he came from. It was wild, but it reminds me of that. And it is an issue that I think lots of people struggle with in these kinds of situations. People like this Redditor and people like me, and I know for a fact that there's loads of others. We just kind of tend to minimize the situation and, kind of blame it on ourselves, and we think that we are paranoid and that nothing's really going on, and it just escalates really quickly to the point where you can't really turn back. For myself at least, I also tend to be scared of offending people, even though I don't owe them anything in the first place. These are complete strangers, people I don't know. I don't owe them anything. So, please, if you're the same kind of person, remember that we don't owe strangers anything. Be rude. Be rude. Don't be scared to be rude. Just stay safe. Nobody else is going to look out for you. It's just you who needs to do it, okay? So be rude and stay safe. And remember, if it doesn't feel right, you're probably not being paranoid. Better to stay safe than to be sorry, right? So, the next story was originally posted by a Reddit user whose username I might have to censor a little bit. I don't think YouTube's going to agree with me if I just say this, but her username is Crazytitty. Their story is called The Woman at the Bank. A little background on me. I moved to Miami back in November last year. I was living in Central didn't have a car, so we basically Ubered everywhere at this point. So we take an Uber to the bank, and then we try to go to the building, and it's closed. Now, it didn't say that on Google, but anyway. At this point, we are frustrated, and we are looking for another bank to go to. Right, so while we were looking for a different bank to go to, this lady of around 45 to 50 years old walks up to us, right? She was wearing a hijab. My friend, who is also a practicing Muslim, was very happy to see someone else who looked familiar. Away from home, we all tend to look for something that makes us feel at home. So, her and the woman start talking to each other. She told the woman about how he was stuck there because the bank was closed. The lady seemed helpful. A little too helpful. She offered to drop us off at the other bank, which was open. We politely declined her offer. Now, this was the first red flag to me, because who, in a normal situation with good intention, would ask two young girls to sit in their car and drive them around the city? I mean, there are people who do that. But I understand this Redditor being uneasy. Now, she was very persistent, and my friend gave in. I told her in our language that I didn't think it was a good idea to do that, but my friend was totally convinced that this woman had good intentions, and there wasn't much I could do at that point, because I didn't want to argue with my friend. I took a picture of the license plate of the woman, and I sat in the back of her car while my friend sat in the front. Now, to me, it seemed like this woman was actively staying in her car, like she was sleeping there. The car was gross, to be honest. I shared my live location instantly, along with the license plate number, with a group of my friends, because something just didn't feel right to me. Now, at this point, the woman and my friend are constantly chatting about what places to get food at, etc. I was just sitting in the back, trying to mind my own business, but this woman started asking for our address. My friend still didn't get a bad feeling from her, but thankfully she didn't have the address on her. Now, that's when she turned around and asked me what the address was. I told her, in my language, "This is creepy. Why is she asking so many questions?" After I said that to my friend, she kind of thought about it, I guess, and she processed it. This woman was asking for our numbers, which we had to share with her because at this point we were in her car and we couldn't really not give her our phone number. She then talked about how she wanted us to meet some of her friends and how she would take us out. I couldn't wait to get out of her car. She told us first that she was a realtor, and then she said that she was a movie director, like she kept changing whatever she was saying. It was weird. We finally reached the bank. I couldn't wait to get the hell out of that car. We started getting out, and this woman also got out. She was so persistent, she kept pulling my friend's arm. She was this tiny woman, about 5 feet tall. My friend and I are about 5'6" and 5'9", so worst case scenario, we could have fought her off easily, but I wasn't willing to take a chance, because what if she was armed? At this point, I tell this woman in a very friendly voice, "Oh my god, we should definitely go. It's 3:30 and the bank is almost about to close. It's just a tiny little thing that I have to fix in there. It'll take about 5 minutes. So let me just get done with this and then we're all yours." She hesitates, still holding my friend's hand in hers, not letting go, pulling her. I try to talk to her again very, very nicely. I tell her, just give us 5 minutes tops and we will be ready to go. Now she finally agrees to this and she says that she'll wait in the car. She lets go of my friend's hand and we tell her, "See ya." We walk to the bank. We get into the bank, scared, mortified even, and we wait there until the bank closes. Now we just sat there waiting inside the bank. We get an Uber and walk out with a bunch of people who are leaving. Sit in the Uber, make sure we didn't get followed. During the time we were inside the bank, we got frantic spam calls from this woman's number. She texted us, called us repeatedly. We blocked her number. We were so scared we could barely talk until we reached home. That day, we learned that no matter how familiar a person looks or feels, always keep your guard up, because there's good people, but there's also some very bad ones, and they come in all colours, shapes and sizes. Creepy tiny woman from the bank, I never, ever want to see you again. Now, this story, I think, is similar to the last one in the sense that I feel like these girls were also scared to be rude or to offend. And you know what? What the original poster says at the end is completely true. You can't trust any strangers. You know, it's sad, but it's true. No matter how familiar somebody looks or feels, you still have to keep your guard up. It's sometimes hard to distinguish the good ones from the bad ones because you can't always go off of their looks. Like I've said on air multiple times before, not all bad people look scruffy and horrible. I think it was very smart of the original poster to immediately share her live location with her friends. That's also a trick that I tend to use whenever I'm in a situation where I don't feel comfortable and I think something might happen. I share my live location with my family, and I think that's quite a smart thing to do. I also think that it was, good and quick thinking to get a photo of the license plate. But just in case, something happens, then at least that information can be passed on to the police. Now, I am extremely glad that nothing ended up happening, because I don't see how this could have ended well if they had gone with the woman for a second time. so glad these girls got away. So glad. I hope they still actually sent that picture of the license plate to the authorities, because what that woman was doing was inherently wrong, and it wasn't just innocently, driving these girls around town and trying to help out these girls. Anything but. So I still feel like that information should be passed on to the authorities. Whether they'll do anything with it is a different matter, but at least then you've done your part and you've shared that information. Alrighty, the last story was originally posted by a Reddit user called Nicrophvgist. I think that's how I'm supposed to pronounce it, but it's down here. Their story is called Stranger Walks into My Home at 3 a.m. 3 or 4 days ago, my wife and I were sound asleep in our bedroom. Around 2:45 a.m, our German Shepherd, Duke, started barking viciously. Now, we've never heard him bark like this before, so we assumed something was amiss. I got up to check and see if something was up, and ended up spilling water all over my nightstand. It took me 2 to 3 minutes to clean up the water, and I figured maybe Duke was simply barking at the rain. I went back to sleep, and a few minutes later, Duke starts again with this vicious bark. My wife starts freaking out and turns our lamp on. We sat in the bed for a second, spooked, and then we heard someone trying our front door. We heard the screen door clicking into place after being shut. The front door was locked, so this intruder had no way of getting in. At this point, I'm freaked out, and so is my wife. From our bedroom, we can see a window in our kitchen that leads out front. My wife starts staring at it intensely, and she tells me she can see a shadow moving back and forth. She said it was a dark silhouette walking up and down our front sidewalk. At this point, I'm getting scared, and when I get scared, I get angry. I get up and turn our kitchen light on in hopes of spooking the stranger outside. You would think he would leave with our dog barking and lights turning on, but at this point I didn't know what to do, and I made a stupid mistake. I went to my garage and I opened the garage door. I then realized I wasn't wearing any shoes and went back to my living room to put them on. I wanted to go outside, find the disturbance and deal with it. Duke was with me the whole time, and when he suddenly turned and started running towards the door that connects to the garage, I knew that I had messed up. I turned and looked, and this dude was just standing in my kitchen with mud on his face. Now he smelled like literal shit. He was wearing relatively decent clothes and didn't appear homeless. I live in the heart of a really nice part of town. Now, as I started approaching him, it looked like he was trying to take his jacket and his shoes off. It was very bizarre. I yelled at him, "Get the fuck out of my house," while Duke was jumping was doing. Maybe he thought that it was his house, since he started taking his shoes and his jacket off. From the door leading from the garage and into the house, there is a glass pane. Where I was standing, he couldn't see me, but he could see my wife. Is it possible he saw her alone and thought that maybe she was by herself and he just came in? The guy wasn't aggressive towards me, but he was also bigger than me, and I'm 6'2" and 210 pounds. Before y'all say it, I know I shouldn't have opened the garage. He obviously took it as an open invitation, and I have felt guilt about it since the time it happened. I figured parking dogs, lights on, garage opening, a normal burglar would just scram. My wife and I are incredibly lucky he wasn't armed or couldn't do anything violent towards us. Can anyone help me brainstorm about motives? I just can't understand how anyone in their right mind would act the way he did. You see, this is kind of the issue. People who do things like that, they aren't in their right mind. Nobody in their right mind would do that. There is no reason to do that kind of thing. You see, because what the original poster is saying is absolutely right. A quote-unquote normal burglar, yeah, they would leg it when lights start turning on, when dogs are barking, when people start getting up and opening doors. They realise they've been discovered and they leg it. My guess is that, mentally there was something wrong with the guy who tried to break in. It is weird that he firstly didn't run, but secondly started taking his shoes off and his jacket as if he was home and he was going to make himself comfortable. That's weird. That's why I'm thinking probably mental health issues or substance abuse. But nevertheless, it is extremely creepy to have to deal with that. I mean, I would be terrified. I wouldn't know what to do. And I'm glad that the original poster or his wife didn't get hurt in the process of, all of this happening. Once again, dogs are a gift to humanity. We do not deserve them. Once again, this dog warned his owners for danger. He warned them that somebody was trying to get in. And, once again, hero of the story. Now, sadly, that was it for tonight's scary stories. Thank you guys so much for choosing to hang out